Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our today webinar. I'm Global Head of Regulatory Affairs in Biomapas, and I'm very happy to present you introduction for different affiliate-based outsourcing models, and then I will hand over the word to Claudia. Start with the agenda of the today. And let me skip the agenda because I believe it's already visible on the screen. And let's get to the point what we mean by affiliate-based outsourcing. Affiliate-based outsourcing model for regulatory affairs is the model which is offering extension or replacement of local regulatory affairs resources by service provider company. Um, this is the general definition, what we understand. Last time we spoke about the triggers and what is needed actually to start such a model successfully. So first of all, company needs to identify the needs and triggers for implementing and improvements within the company to start affiliate-based outsourcing. Then, usually, not usually, but for sure, company needs to ensure that it's ready for the journey, and they need to also choose the targeted model which will be used for affiliate-based outsourcing. And then, indeed, it's very important to check internal readiness, including preparation of the internal company stakeholders like other departments, quality assurance, TV, or possibly supply chain, and the others like market access. Then, what are the added value of ABO outsourcing? What company generally can achieve is flexible and customized local regional RA team and support, which is really flexible because you as a company could use just the resources you need and pay for such a resource. Indeed, you can also extend your resources. So, in the case of the extreme peak of the workload or special projects, you can ensure strong business continuity by this flexibility. If you have an internal local regulatory team, by implementing of additional resources, you can also reduce the administrative burden on your own internal resources and let them reallocate on the strategic projects within your company. And by all these, let's say, points, indeed, you can achieve quite visible cost optimization and positive impact on the budget. And last but not least is expertise extension, which could be ensured by the fact that you use real experts in the countries and the regions um, which are ensured by the service company. Well, so before the rollout of ABO, it's really important to analyze the triggers, which are coming usually from company structure and organization, then indeed portfolio, the additional needs with regard, for example, improvement and harmonization of the processes, and indeed then it's necessity to set up the priorities of such a triggers and then priorities for which are seen as the main to be solved within this model. It could be either fixing, for example, the budget or improvement of the quality of the regulatory operations. Yes, and then it's important to decide for the optimal ABO model creation. And my colleague will talk more about options of ABO because it's important to know what is the target before moving forward to know what you want to achieve. And then I'm handing over the word to my colleague Claudia. So Claudia, because you was not available due to technical issue, can you please first introduce yourself and then continue?
Sure, of course. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining. My name is Claudia Ghislieri. I am a head of Regulatory Affairs Project Managers in Biomapas. I have approximately 20 years of experience in RA, as well as experience in quality assurance. And I also covered the position of qualified person for a few years. I joined Biomapas last year. In my role, I am responsible for ensuring proper management and oversight of the project from the very early stages of discussion and contract setup until the closure of the project itself. So if fine for you, I think that we can move back to the slides. Thank you very much, Olga, for taking care until now. What's our aim then in this webinar? Our aim is really to share our experience with you as far as ABO types and options are concerned to help you better understand what ABO and customization would mean and how many options you have when you think about outsourcing via ABO model. We will then present the three main ABO types and several subtypes for some of them. These are based on our past and present experience with ABO. And so we hope that they can give you an idea of what we're talking about. Nevertheless, just please consider that this is not an exhaustive list of options. It is rather an example of what we can do. So in the next slides, we will go through the details of full scope, partial scope, and the specific scope ABO. Let's start with the full scope ABO. This is the most complex one since it is fully covering the local array functions of a company. As such, it manages all the products like medicinal products, but also medical devices, food supplements, cosmetics, or general goods. And within each type of product, this model manages the whole portfolio, so both global and local registrations, all the new products, as well as products under registration or products being sold to any other company. And as a result, all the relevant registrations are included, being them national, MRPDCP, or centralized. And all regulations are covered, like, for example, EU and the Eurasian ones. Then the full scope also applies to all the countries where products are registered with a full geographical coverage. And of course, as a result, this type of ABO cannot only focus on the array support, but shall also include the strict collaboration and support to other local and global functions, like, for example, quality, pharmacovigilance, or supply chain. Moreover, since we consider all the countries, the full scope also includes the management of countries where, for example, there is no company affiliate, but rather distributors or other third parties. In this case as well, the ABO model allows us to adjust the local support to take into account the relevant management and specific ways of working. In this case, among others, the technical agreements are reconsidered, reviewed, and agreed as well. And very important, acting as main authorized contact for the local health authorities is also included in the support to local affiliates or markets. This allows, in fact, smooth and easy communication with authorities, in many cases speaking the same language and thus avoiding possible misunderstanding or difficult communications, and requires, of course, a signature of specific power of attorneys. And still, In the frame of a full scope ABO, we can list some specific array tasks, like, for example, the preparation and update of Module 1, with, just to mention a few, the creation of update or local documents, like cover letters, application forms, product information, and including the relevant translation where needed. Then we have the collaboration with the central functions or company headquarters, as far as, for example, the preparation, review, and or update of CMC documents, or also ECTD compilation and publishing, or also coordination of linguistic reviews, in addition to the local management, of course, or again, support for the CPP management. And all the above shall be performed in compliance with company procedures in force, or in compliance with agreed processes, thus including use of local systems where needed or applicable. In fact, Biomapa's team has a quite wide experience with the electronic document management system, as well as with the main artwork, promotional material, and the training tools. The team is used to access the company systems, quickly learn the specific company processes, and adapt to any local needs. And last but not least, within the full ABO model, we shall mention the management of local submissions and follow-up with local authorities. And all processes listed so far work accordingly to the interaction map that you can see here. This slide describes how mainly communication works. Depending on the subject, the client can either directly communicate with the team responsible for the task, so central operations or local operation, thus going directly to the most knowledgeable counterpart and optimizing the communication in terms of content and time, or can discuss with the project manager. The central and local services in Biomapas can then either liaise with each other or with the client to finalize the task preparation. The local teams are then also responsible for direct communication with either local health authorities or local affiliates or third parties, like, for example, distributors. And on top of everything, as anticipated before, the project manager in Biomapas is responsible for defining and agreeing the support and relevant processes with the client, and then cascading instruction to the team to ensure proper management. The PM is also responsible for discussing any process or project concerns or improvement directly with the client, and for evaluating the project performance and KPI. Moving on, let's see the partial scope ABO. Well, in this case, the general rules and added values of ABO already discussed still apply, but to a more limited extent. And it is up to the company to decide what such extent would be based on its needs. We will see the examples more in details in the next slides. But again, let's remember that this is just an example, and the list could be integrated with any additional specific needs a company could have. So roughly, partial scope ABO could apply to geographical needs or to portfolio needs, or it can be based on urgent needs, or more operationally speaking, on specific processes. Of course, whatever the decision for partial scope ABO is, we can provide support with the company database management and update if needed. And of course, any partial scope ABO would include support with regards to the relevant strategy, as well as support with accessory tasks like ECTD compilation and or publishing if needed. In fact, as mentioned before, the central operations can provide support within each type of requested ABO model. So going more into details with regards to the partial scope ABO, we can start mentioning the geographical approach connected with either clusters or regions. This is, for example, the model that we are currently applying for a project we are managing, meaning that we provide a full array support with all products, but only in a limited number of countries, a well-defined number of countries. This is connected to the client internal organization, but could also come from a specific decision to only hand over some countries because of specific needs, or just to, let's say, test the process and then possibly expand to other countries. Another reason for choosing the cluster or regional ABO could be the implementation of regional regulations, like, for example, the Eurasian procedure. In this case, as we will see in the next slides, maybe we could identify the ABO, this type of ABO, as specific scope ABO. Same comment applies to the portfolio partial scope. This includes management of a part of the portfolio in all the applicable countries and for all the relevant registrations and procedures. Here again, it is a strategic decision of the company that, as per our experience, could be connected to the need to have free internal resources to focus on new products, thus managing the standard, well-structured and reproducible process of all brands within the ABO instead. Here, most of the processes are by definition already in place, and it is only a matter of implementing them in the ABO. Another reason for choosing the portfolio ABO could be the need to focus on one or a few therapeutical areas, or here as well, to rely on subject matter expert support for some products, like medical devices. Another example of partial scope ABO could be connected to some urgent tasks that have to be prioritized within the company, like, for example, a launch, and for such reason cannot be managed internally in addition to other ongoing tasks. Here and over to the ABO model would ensure a dedicated and expert team that can work full-time on the needed tasks, allowing the company to stick to other internal timelines. Urgency ABO can also be linked to, how to say, unplanned lack of internal resources or issues with the stakeholders. Again, in connection with regulation, so external triggers, urgency ABO could be chosen upon need to take a decision in short regarding use of one or other procedure, and promptly manage accordingly. This is a very present topic, for example, in connection with the decision to choose among the national or Eurasian procedure within the end of this year. And then we have a process-specific partial ABO. Here, just one procedure is included, but it applies to all countries and products. This is quite typical in our experience for linguistic reviews, because it is a very time-consuming activity within the company, using many resources for the relevant management and coordination. So ABO can focus on central and or local support, or of both, of course, and would include the coordination of other department reviews as well, and follow up with local agencies for clarification if needed. New registrations are also often subject of ABOs. When the marketing authorization is issued, then it is possible to either extend the ABO to the standard lifecycle management or move to another MA application, or both. Of course, partial scope means applicability to a selected area or task as per company decision, but it does not mean partial support. In fact, the support within partial ABO covers, as I said, all array steps from the strategical discussion to the operational and tracking support, to the communication with the local health authorities and follow up with regards to concerns, questions, or approval, as well as use and update of client systems as requested. And the support also covers array review and submission of promotional material or price application if requested or applicable. And last but not least, marketing authorization holder transfer as well is a very typical example of a procedure suitable for partial ABO because it is predefined activity with quite clear start and end points. According to our experience, MAH transfers are usually well-defined projects with strategically agreed target dates and requesting very well-defined plan and coordination across markets. And as such, they are very suitable for the ABO management. Also, marketing authorization holder transfer could trigger additional changes, like, for example, site transfer, that could trigger CMC changes in turn. All mentioned processes can be included in a partial ABO since the very beginning, or ABO can be applied to the marketing authorization holder transfer at the beginning, and then can be extended to the site and CMC changes. And then the ABO can also be a solution and a model for the management of specific needs. As mentioned in the partial scope discussion, an example of a specific scope ABO could be connected to the implementation of the Eurasian regulation. In fact, the ABO model allows the company to receive full support in terms of regulatory intelligence, strategy, and operational local tasks. Or even more specifically, the model could apply to the new MD regulation in the Eurasian region. This is just to share a couple of examples we are pretty active in and working with dedicated teams of experts. Additional examples of specific scope ABO can include, but are not limited to, launch, serialization, or CPP management. Serialization is indeed a project we had experience with because it required local inputs for discussion with global functions and planning of actions, as well as coordination of local tasks to ensure implementation of local needs according to global processes within local deadline that changed from country to country. All of these, not forgetting the evaluation of import and export needs, for example, and artwork updates within the same manufacturing site. So really a huge collaboration work across countries and functions. And as a last example, we can share our experience with the CPP ABO. In this case, it is a very specific scope that is not a procedure or a process itself or a geographical need, but it is rather a document management, a restricted task within a broader array processes. And the relevant management could then include steps regarding request, withdrawal, either in person or not, of the CPP, then corrections if needed, and translation, not to forget legalization, authorization, apostille, and then, as a result, collaboration with public notary and or embassy. So, to summarize, ABO is a 100% flexible, customizable, and scalable model. And it shall be defined taking into account the actual needs and triggers in the company. It shall be, as the slide says, tailored to your needs rather than simply applied. All options are possible, And the examples shared in this webinar mainly aimed at providing you with some evidence regarding the wide range of possibilities. And now it's up to you. So I think that we can now move to the Q&A session. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to type them in the chat, and we will be happy to answer or to provide any clarifications. And of course, you can reach out to these contacts if anything is needed, either now or in the future. And thank you very much for listening.